Record this meeting. Official. Hello and welcome everyone to our talk today on the energy system. And it's specifically fueling your body's energy systems. And started a little beforehand of just kind of testing the waters, literally, before we jumped on board here with all of this. So I was asking about the races that we did. So Economo Walk was just this past weekend, 10K, 3K. And I was saying, if you can break this down, I have some videos and things, but it's always there's the risk of when you share screen as to whether or not it actually works. So I want you to think about this. So for those of you that are here live, and then for those of you that are watching the recording of the last race that you did, whether it was an actual race or the mock of the race, time, right? It comes down to time and how time relates to the energy system itself. So I want you to just visualize, if you could close your eyes right now and perhaps, it's like maybe it's a Economo Walk or wherever it was. You're standing on your board, you have your paddle, you're ready. Everyone's getting in line, racers get into line, you have the buoy, line up with this buoy, right? And so then you're there and they say, racers, ready? You're ready? And then they make the thing and then you take off. So within the first few seconds, so I was trying to do different ways that you'll see. I'm going to send you the slides. This is an example, and I'll share screen of the energy system. So as soon as we start, there are 3 energy systems. Going to jump around a little bit here, but as soon as you start, you have your immediate energy system is going to come into play. And let me jump into this. Okay, so immediate energy system. When you first start, do you remember the feeling of what's going on in your muscles and in your breathing? What changes do you start to feel in your body? And this really is because I want you to tap into what's going on in your body so that you could start relating what you're feeling and sensing to what's actually going on inside in your metabolism. So for those of you that are here, what do you feel when you first start off? Yes, you're moving quickly, but what are you feeling respiratory wise, muscular wise? What are some things?
Breathing harder for sure.
Yes. Breathing.
Yeah. Breathing harder, adrenaline.
Yes. So specifically the breathing harder that I wanted to talk about. So the first energy system is the phosphocreatine system. So we have energy that's tied in with oxygen and without the oxygen. So when you start off, you have to breathe harder so that you can bring more oxygen into your body, right? And we have to use our muscles in order to pull it in. So that's the reason why the heart and lungs are a little bit delayed. And so we have to respond to this change, and there isn't a sufficient delivery of oxygen into the cells. And so that starting point, first 10, maybe 20 seconds, then there's a shift. Yes? So again, this is for everyone live and watching the recording. Are you able to maintain the intensity that you start the race with for the majority of the
Definitely not.
So, well, specifically for a 10K and a 5K, right? So if it was a sprint, it's going to be slightly different, right? Because shorter amount of time. So again, it all comes down to the time. So based on the intensity that you're training, that's going to dictate the energy system that's working and also the fuel that's working. And so the first one is, as I was saying, the creatine phosphate system. And the muscles rely on a small amount of ATP. So the ATP, maybe you've heard of this phrase before, the adenosine triphosphate. This is the high energy molecule that provides the energy that you need. But in this immediate energy system, there's a limited amount. So within 10 seconds, this first system is depleted. So this is really the key, is that you're going to get handouts and you have the different things. And I have this here. I want you to just look. I can't really see, but so you can see a little bit in the graph. The creatine phosphate system is immediate, but it's 10 seconds. And then after that moves into the glycolytic system. So this is the first 10 seconds, more or less, you're sprinting, right? Because you want to get ahead of the pack. You want to get a good clean line. Yes. And then do you feel like, yes, because you can't maintain that intensity, that you settle in. Yes. So you settle in slightly higher intensity, but you're settling in like, okay, breathe, 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 catch your breath, because your first breathing, it's like explosive, all out that you can go. And then you settle in a little bit. And then this next system, the glycolytic system, pull here. Yeah. So this one is about 15 seconds. It's another short one. This again is without oxygen. So it's also known as anaerobic. It's the anaerobic system. It delivers that adenosine triphosphate, but there's only so much that it can do. And this system, the glycolytic system, is fueled only by glucose. Glucose is the fancy word for sugar or carbohydrates. Okay. And so the question, or some of the questions is like, what are you fueling? How are you fueling? This is to emphasize the importance of having carbohydrate in your meals, in your snacks, and specifically in preparation for your racing. What I mean in preparation for your racing, not just on race day. Okay, that's the key. It's not just on race day, because we get our fuel from what is in the food that we eat and also what's stored in our body. So the glucose, which again is carbohydrate, the storage form is known as glycogen, and it's stored in your muscles. I'm going that's a usual, like, look at those muscles. I don't see your two muscles, but it's like it's stored in your muscles, but there's a limited amount. And so if you're not consciously eating food to replenish those stores, you're going to have just a little muscle like this. But if you actually consciously fuel it, then you'll have a big, okay? That's the long story short, really. It's like you have to fuel your body. So that's also a question for all of you here and for people that are watching later on, watching the recording, is if in this past race or any training session that you have ever done, have you ever run out of energy? Have you ever run out of fuel where you're paddling along, and you just start to get sluggish? Or maybe it's just like, wow, you start to feel heavy. Has anyone ever had that experience before?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes, right. So that's something that we all experience, because paddling is a new journey. It's an amazing experience, right? And then we learn about our body. And this is what's so awesome for me, especially as a sport nutrition coach and as an athlete, is the importance of all of the different fuels. So long story short is that the anaerobic system, meaning this part of your metabolism that works to create energy without oxygen, must have carbohydrate. And so this again, because I'm always trying to tell people, you have to have some carbohydrate. You have to have some carbohydrate. And so let me also preface that some, that's the word, right? Some. It doesn't mean you have to carb load, where some people are, there's a carb phobia. We're like, you can't have carbs. Like, you can have carbs. You can have some carbs. And so that's going to be a little bit more of the discussion, like the science of our metabolism. This is a fact, right? It isn't something where like, nope, that doesn't work for me. Like, nope, this is how our bodies work, period. And so once we understand how our bodies work, then we can use it to our advantage. And that's what we want to do. So again, with this glycolytic system, it's only about 15 seconds. And so think about this. If you're not fueling yourself, say it's a morning race, right? They're typically morning races. If you go into the race and you haven't had breakfast in the morning, then this time frame that it's about 15 seconds, it's going to be shorter for you, right? And so that ties into your fueling, that you can say like, okay, maybe you don't eat a ton of carbs, but in preparation for this race, the week leading up to is like, okay, I don't typically eat these, but I'm going to add some, which can be about the size of your fist. If you think about that, that's not a ton, right? It's not like, I was going to say, because of pancakes, we started a little bit of pancakes in the beginning. It's like, doesn't mean eating a plate of pancakes, right? It means like one serving. It's like one pancake, okay? So that's the glycolytic system, anaerobic system. And then it shifts. So it's about 25 to 30
Sorry,
seconds.
Audrey, I had a quick question. Do you want me to hold it to the end?
No, go ahead and ask now.
Oh, okay. So were you just saying that you can start incorporating carbs a few days before the race, not just the morning of?
Correct. It's actually ideal to do it a few days beforehand. And
I was
so,
going to ask that. Yeah.
yes, we'll talk specifically about that stuff, but it's something that you want to, like, say again, you work on, right? You've been training for all these races. You specifically upgraded from where you started of not having any experience at all, right? You're starting perhaps on an inflatable borrowed board, and then you get into it and you're like, I want a board. I want a race board. I want to go fast. Then performance board, right? You get a paddle. It's not a rental paddle anymore. Then you get a high quality paddle. That's one part of the preparation. Then you don't fuel yourself. You don't have the energy to go. And so when you say 5 days ahead, maybe 7 days ahead of the race, a little bit of carbohydrate, you can think of it as a drip. And then so your muscles and your liver then have ample time to take that in so that on race day, you're fueled to the max. And doesn't mean being stuffed. It just means and that's why I was saying it's an injection. It's a little bit every single day. So the body is realizing, I have carbs, I can use these. So does that help you, Jackie?
It does. Thank you. And I do have another question I'm sure you're going to get into, but about what type of carbs, like where do you source those carbs?
We're going to get into that specifically after. So let me talk about the aerobic energy system, and then we'll go into that. So aerobic energy system, this is what you know. This is now, so as we said, it's about 30 seconds, right? So 10 seconds for the first energy system, about 15 for the second, and then the body switches over. It's the body, its metabolism switches over to the aerobic system because our cardiovascular system and respiratory system have now caught up to what's actually going on in our body. Does that make sense? So I was talking about the oxygen, and that's why I was trying to get you to think about or to remember the body, right? Because you already have your nerves, right? You're kind of hyperventilating. Then you have to tell yourself, okay, calm down. Let me take my breath. Racer's ready. You start getting chills and you're still like, okay, racer's ready. Get ready, get ready. You go, right? And you might hold your breath or you're like, you do that kind of thing, right? And you're not getting sufficient oxygen in. So then you start to remember, I remember what coach was telling me. I remember what Audrey's talking about. Let me breathe. You start to feel like, okay, I'm calming down a little bit. I can breathe a little bit more. 30 seconds, the systems in your body also tune in. Then it's like, okay, we can take the oxygen. So now the aerobic system takes over. This is the system that will last forever, right? So this will be from 2 minutes to 8 to 12 hours worth of time, right? And so this is the system that now that we know with the systems, it's slow, but it gives the most energy. And we say energy, ATP, adenosine triphosphate. This system is the slower system and is fueled by all of the nutrients or macronutrients, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. So it's important, long story short, also with nutrition is that we want all of the nutrients. But as athletes, we want to also, or I want to emphasize in this particular talk is remember the carbohydrates because they've been shunned, they've poo-pooed the carbohydrates, but where does that come from? It doesn't come from athleticism. It doesn't come from athletics. It typically comes from people that need to lose weight. It comes from health, right? Where most individuals are sedentary and they're eating too many carbs and they're not using them. The difference with athletes, and this ties into your question a little bit, Jackie, is that yes, athletes need the carbohydrates. So when we're not consciously eating carbohydrates, we're actually doing a disservice for our body. And so our performance can be hindered. So I'll jump right into types of carbohydrates. So types of carbohydrates then. How about this? I was going to switch because I don't really have carbohydrates in my house. I do have carbohydrates, but they're not like, as we said, processed. So what carbohydrates do you tend to eat? I guess I shouldn't put anybody on the spot, but number one, pancakes. We're going to use it as an example because inside joke for those of you that are watching the recording. Inside joke, but pancakes. So what are the ingredients in pancakes? A grain, right? So it could be wheat because some people eat wheat. There's also gluten-free pancakes, which opens the door to many other things, right? So you can have oat pancakes, you can have potato pancakes, you can have rice pancakes. Some people, I wouldn't say I've tried it myself. You can have garbanzo bean flour pancakes. Flours, right? What are flours? Those are grains. So if grains are part of your nutrition, that is a way that you can add carbohydrate to your meals, right? And again, a serving is about the size of your palm, size of your fist. I'm making the fist. Look at your own fist. Everybody is different, right? We're all unique individuals. My fist is not going to be the same as yours. So this is one serving size, right? And so if you look at that, oatmeal is another, right? Granola, those type of things, breads, those are starchy carbohydrates. Serving size is about the size of your fist. And so cereals, typically a serving size is not even a full cup. So this is a reminder because some people think like, oh, that's so much. If you actually follow the American Dietetics recommendations of what an actual serving size is, it's actually not that much. The average American is eating far more than that, right? And then they're not exercising. But that's not us. So those are some starchy carbohydrates. Also potatoes, sweet potatoes, excellent sources of carbohydrates. And so if you have any grain issues, especially if you're gluten intolerant, you're not going to want gluten. Gluten is found in wheat. You can also find some traces in other grains, especially if they're made in the same processing area. So look at the ingredients. So in talks that we've had before, I always talk about the nutrition facts. Check the nutrition facts, but gluten is wheat. And if you have any issues at all with grains, your body will tell you. You probably already know, right? So it isn't something where you're like, oh my goodness, I had no idea that I would respond this way. Typically, by this point in your life, you know how your body responds to certain foods. Yeah? So, and another note is when you're trying new foods, please don't do the new food on a race day because I know you're working hard, you're training hard. If you by any chance happen to eat a food that does not agree with your body and your digestive system on race day, you might end up blowing the whole race because you sit in the bathroom the whole rest of So remember, if you are trying something new, try it during practice because then you have an idea. So that's another something. Breakfast, cereal maybe, smoothies. You could also do a smoothie and then you can put some grain in it. Or another nice thing is make it into a fancy treat where if you do a smoothie bowl or something like an acai bowl, some granola on it. Again, it's not a lot. So another bananas question for all of you here and also people that will be watching later. Bananas? Do you eat bananas? I'm hoping that you eat bananas. Yes? Okay, good. Bananas are another great source of carbohydrate, and they're a quick energy source. So if anyone has ever heard of the glycemic index, the glycemic index,
Yes.
yes? Okay, good. The glycemic index is something that you can use to your advantage, and this ties back to your question, Jackie, and the question that everyone is asking. It's like, okay, we know all of this. What should we be eating? The glycemic index was created for diabetics because glucose, right, we talked about, comes from carbohydrates when broken down is sugar. So simple sugars, simple carbohydrates will release their sugars quickly into the bloodstream. For diabetics, that's not ideal. But for athletes, right, pointing at yourself, that's ideal. Okay, so if you are familiar with the glycemic index, or if you want to use the glycemic index, get the glycemic index, you look it up. The stuff that's high, that's what you want to be eating. So it would be things like, if you say, for example, rice, white rice, because it doesn't have fiber, they take that stuff out. The whole idea for us as athletes is that we want it to be taken into the body as quickly as and so say something like that, if you had a rice pudding on race day or training day, that would be something, whoop, so long as it's not high in fat or high in protein, like if you add other things to it, then that changes the glycemic index. So that's also the key. Glycemic index is the food just by itself. So typically they're carbohydrate-rich foods, as we said, grains, pastas, cereals, breads, those types of things, potatoes, sweet potatoes, starchy type things. But then you have the different fruits. Bananas are high in the glycemic index, things that are high in sugar. these are things that will be helpful for you. And so how you start to play around with this, then with the question is, say the week leading up to the race, is that you add some of the complex carbohydrates, which would be the ones that are tied in with the fiber, right? They're complex because of that fiber. Fiber slows down the digestion. And so if you have fiber, and actually, if you have fiber with any type of food, right? Because the other foods, protein, fats. If you have fiber, fiber slows down every single thing. So carbohydrates are processed the fastest, then comes protein, then comes fat, and then comes fiber. So fiber slows it down. So on a race day or training day, we don't want fiber close to your race. So say for morning of the race, simple, maybe do banana with some easy grains, or some people like to have a banana toast, something like that, like simple, easy. The evening before would be where you have, say you have a little potato like this, right? A little potato because you're having a little bit in each meal. So maybe you do a roasted potato with some roasted vegetable with some roasted protein, like a nice, garlic rosemary chicken or something like that, maybe, right? And then a
Making me
lunch
so hungry.
thing, like if we were alive, we'd have all the things and like, okay, and so ways again to inject the carbohydrates into what you're doing. Fruits are also carbohydrates. So eating fruit is actually good. And so we talked about, so carbohydrates are actually sugars. And if you look at them chemically or biochemically, they are sugar molecules put together. So the simple ones like lactose, glucose, fructose, those are the simplest forms. Your body will take them, boop, they don't even have to process them. They're that simple. That's what the sport nutrition products typically are. If you look at the ingredients, it can be glucose, dextrose, maltodextrin. Those are sugar molecules designed typically quick release, right? And so when you have a mixture, so I'm talking about the complex things, is many of the molecules together. And so that's where the complexity is, and that's where there's that slow release into your bloodstream. And that's what you want, right? So when you don't have that slow release, then you might not have energy, you eat some food, boom, then you're like, oh, wow, let's do stuff, yay. And then a little bit later, oh, now I need some coffee or something else, or whatever. And then you eat another, shoot the highs and lows. But in order to stay consistent, that's where the complexity comes in. And complexity, think fiber. I'd rather you think like add fiber in its natural form, which is fruits and vegetables. Okay. And so another high fiber, corn on the cob. This is a fantastic time. It's summertime, right? You're talking about ooh, hungry. Like I'm sure you've all, or maybe I'm not sure, if you've ever had corn on the cob fresh from the farm. Incredible, right? So amazing. That's a complex carbohydrate, but it's simple. It's simple. So it's one of those, it's high in starch, gets released quickly. Add that to your meals. And it doesn't mean you need to go crazy. You could have the whole ear of corn. If you're conscious about it, have half an ear of corn. But typically it's so good you have to have the whole thing. So just throwing it out there, right? But that's another something. Again, with the whole grilled, like to me, I think in the summer grilling is such a nice way because you can do potatoes, sweet potatoes, you can do the corn, do all your veggies, your meats, fishes, whatever. You can put them all on the grill and then you choose whatever sauces you like. And that just gives it the flavor. So does that help with some ideas? Because it's kind of broad, but also, it's start your carbohydrates, have some vegetables, have some fruit, have some protein, and some fat in your meals. Okay? What questions do you have for me? Or are there any questions? Are we going out to eat yet after this?
Seriously. That roast chicken.
How many minutes?
So good.
How many minutes before the race would you eat the banana?
Test that out during your training. I would say, you could have it 30 minutes. And so also think about the banana size. There are huge bananas, there's little bananas, maybe do half a banana. Try it out in your training. Half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe closer. Like I'm taking a super hyper conservative recommendation because I don't want you to be like, oh, have a banana and jump on the board. You might just be like, right?
Yeah. And it depends on, I assume, how ripe it is as well.
Depends on how ripe it is as well. Absolutely. So the more brown spots, the more sugar, the faster it'll be released.
Faster it's going to be available to you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I typically have a nice breakfast like 2 hours before the race, 2 or 3 hours. And then right before the race, I have another sugary snack, could be like a bar or could be a banana. Yeah.
So like when you say right before, Kirsten, is that like how many minutes
It's
before you jump on your board?
15 or so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Like, I mean, I want to make sure I have time to get to the starting line and not still be chewing, but like, yeah, when you
Yeah,
like have a snack, grab your board, get on the water, I guess, yeah.
Sport
But you have
nutrition,
to test it out for yourself.
test it out for
right.
test it out for yourself. I'm going to say it again. Test it out for yourself. People in the back, test it out for yourself, right? In training, not during the race. The sport nutrition products. So think the more liquid, the faster it's going to be absorbed into your system, right? So if it's a hydration mix that has the calories in it, that's as soon as you put it in your mouth, you're processing that, right? It's available for use. The other things, chews, those are also super quick. Those are designed literally like chew and go. But again, test it out for yourself. The gels, people like doing gels. Test that out for yourself. Those are super intense, right? So those little things, if you've seen before, those are typically 100 grams and they'll have 60 to upwards of 100 grams of carbohydrate. That's intense, right? So I'm glad that you said that because those tend to give people issues if you're not accustomed to them because it's literally a big load of carbs and you need water to dilute it so your body can use it. And so you have done those before, tendencies you might have some stomach upset if you're not used to it because once it's in your system, the body's going to have to pull water from your muscles, right, from your essential areas in order to dilute that concentrated gel so that it can use it. So again, test it out, test it out, test it out, test it out.
I
Yes.
do have a question about that, Audrey. So I can't remember. I wish that I had a better memory about this. Maybe Kirsten, maybe you can jump in. I think it was in Stacy Sims' book Roar. I think so. I think
Yeah.
that's what it's talking about. She's talking about that for women, you should think hydration in your bottle and nutrition in your pocket. That for women, the goos and the like anything that's mixed with water is not like it's not absorbed correctly or it's designed for like a male athletic body. And so anyway, I was just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit, since obviously I have a small understanding of what she was talking about, other than where she simplified it like that. Is it like
Yeah,
a hard and
that is
fast
a
rule? Because
good.
obviously we have we on the board, sometimes we need to have nutrition in the bottle, basically.
I
yes,
think that's what Audrey just talked about, the diluting, right? Of
yes.
the sugar.
The diluting of the sugar.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is, I mean,
So men don't have that issue? They're like, fine, they don't have to deal with that? Rude.
it's yeah, they do have issues, but it always comes back to the female physiology is far more sensitive than males. Far more sensitive than males. So we haven't talked about recovery, but that recovery window of having carbohydrates and protein, 3 to 4 times more carbohydrate to protein in your recovery drink or whatever it may be, the women's window, right? Women's physiology is a small, short window. It's shown it's 30 to 45 minutes. I like to tell people 30 minutes, like as soon as possible, you finish. Say if you're doing, like for me, when I go out and train with the club in California, I train every single day and it's intense. So I have to recover in between my training sessions. And so I make sure as soon as I get to my car with my board, I have my recovery shake. I drink it immediately because sometimes we're hanging out there for like an hour before you actually even leave. And then you go home and have some food. As a woman, we've lost our window of opportunity to optimize recovery. You'll still recover, but you won't recover as quickly when you're outside of that window. That window for males is 1 to 3 hours.
What?
Not fair.
What?
Not fair.
Are you
Right?
kidding me?
Yeah. And isn't that
3
amazing?
hours?
Yes.
No.
Yes. And so another something too that we haven't talked about is, oops, sorry about that, fasting, right? So fasting and training or racing in a fasted state women, and you'll see that in Dr. Stacy Sims and all kinds of, the research, more and more research is coming out, but women do not do well in a fasted state. In a fasted state, not only with the training, if we continue with the fasting, right? Because that's the whole, again, weight loss, like, oh, I'm going to fast, I'm doing intermittent fasting, blah, 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 blah. In women, there is a change in metabolism where the body will hold on to, while fasting like that, there's a tendency for weight gain because our physiology is different versus males. Fasting before training, they will get leaner, women will put on weight. Again, not fair, but that's how our physiology is, and then it's like, now that we know, which is amazing, right? Because more women are talking about this. There are more professional women athletes that are out there going through the experience and sharing their stories. And then we can also share our stories that we learn things the hard way, right? Because prior to this time in nutrition, right, or this time in sports, there wasn't information about females. It was all based on males. Like when I was going to school, all the research was on males. Talk about it. It was always the lame excuse. We cannot standardize that every single female is on the same phase of her cycle, which is true. Like, yes, that is true, because that's a whole other something that we're also not talking about, is that the hormonal cycle, right? The phases of our menstrual cycle affect our metabolism and the way that we break down and absorb food. And at certain times, we need different nutrients, right? Luteal phase, that's where we need more carbohydrate. So that's another something. And so if we're interested, that can be something to plan for another time. So this one was short and sweet, and that's what we're going to do. It's like really hone in and focus on one particular topic. And then if you see there are more questions, which I'm happy to, respond to, is like, let's use this as an opportunity. So we're taking the workshops that we did in the past and just getting even more specified and just looking at the science. And for males out there, we're going to be talking about the differences. What should a man do? What should a woman do? Because now we know. So that's amazing. Are there any other questions as we start to wrap up?
No, this was great.
Thank
Thank you
you
so
so
much,
much.
Audrey.
You're welcome.
I'm like, yeah, amazing.
Yay. So I will see you all live in person. So I come in on the
Yay.
I'll be doing beach to beach with you all. So we'll make sure if
Pray
you
for
want.
good weather.
I have been praying, and everyone I talk to, like, I hope I can actually stand on a board this time.
What day are you coming in?
Thursday. I think it's the 25th.
Nice.
Yes, yes.
Nice.
Thank you so much for your time, for your attention, for your energy and your interest, and try these things out. And especially because now afterwards, this is where it really, where it comes alive, literally, where maybe a little something like, let me tweak this. So I will ask you, and as part, like, this is the start of the conversation, because it's going to continue, because now it's like, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What's your energy level like? So ask yourself those questions, and now you can make the connections. Okay. Yay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so
Welcome.
much.
Thank you, Audrey.
Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.
You
Thanks.
too.
Have a great evening. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Great night.